Welcome back to the Worthy for 30 podcast. I'm your host, Eric Tash. With me today is Melissa Wallace, as well as Katie Schuele, the co-founders of Fierce Foundry, FemTech Venture Studio. Welcome to the show, Melissa and Katie.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump right in. I know it's Friday. It's late in the afternoon. It's a beautiful day out, and we have the weekend to look forward to. But at the same time, we have an amazing conversation that's going to ensue around why you started Fierce Foundry. What was that insight or that inflection point? And I don't know if Katie or Melissa, you want to start, but just bringing us up to speed on what you're working on.
I'm going to let Melissa answer. It's her baby.
It sure is. It's a big baby. I'm happy to answer that question for you. I think I'm going to start by sharing how Katie and I got to know each other, which was through my marketing agency. We were working with her company, Booster, big tech giant. And we together formed our nonprofit called Fierce Founders, which was really a mentoring community where, my agency was, donating marketing services to female founders that were really struggling in that early stage pre-seed funding in order to get their products launched. Katie, being a founder herself, joined the team as a mentor. And, we were really kind of this little sleepy community where it would be more one-offs, where we'd be supporting people really individually or connecting them individually. And a couple of years ago, I met with the board and said, hey, we could do more. We've built this powerful network of individuals. Let's think about doing an accelerator or an incubator or something where we can actually build with these founders. And having had some experience with the studio model, I went and did some additional research and made the recommendation. And of course, everybody was like, hell yeah, this is what women actually need. And so today, 2 years since that conversation happened, we've done quite a bit. We've built so much momentum around this idea of how we can impact the investing ecosystem, especially as it relates to women, because when you are co-founded by Fierce Foundry, we not only provide your initial capital, but we basically provide you all the necessary operating from idea to exit. So, on the early idea stage where we're doing market research, 5foot2 will come in and support there, all the way to bringing Carrie Kirpin in, a few years before we want to exit. And the goal being that we will exit the company in less than 7 years. And that female-led organization, that female founder, will go on and invest in more.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, when we were doing the nonprofit, it also was during the pandemic, and it naturally lent itself to, we just needed more community. So we had a lot of Zoom calls and there was a ton of energy on those. I found them super helpful. Sometimes they were a literal lifeline to just talk to other women who had their life on the line like I did. That's a horrible thing to say about COVID. My financial security on the line like I did. And after the pandemic and things went back to normal, I sort of lost a little bit of that. And now with Fierce Foundry, the energy and momentum is back and it feels so good. Like we knew we were on the right path with something. I think we found it.
So you found that again, and it's 2 years in, right? From that, from that nonprofit, from that COVID time. Is it not 2 years in, or?
Well, 2 years ago we had that conversation.
Okay.
We quickly, started to form. I would say that we've been operating for a year.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So operating for a year. Okay. So even better question. So you had that conversation 2 years. There was that year in between of planning. So what were the steps? What was that process? Because I talked to a lot of founders who describe that 0 to 1 as crucial. That from that concept or that thought, like, oh, this sounds great, to actually doing it. So for the aspiring investor, the aspiring entrepreneur, what are those steps that you took to make it reality?
Yeah, I know that struggle so well, not just from working with the founders that we work with, but also at the marketing agency. Like we see these very early stage companies come to us for like, no, too soon, and then like within 6 months they're like, we've got it. Let's go. Our process, I think, it started with me sort of asking permission to take it and run. And the first step was, do we have all the right partners to actually build these companies? And the second we started talking to those partners, it was like an explosion. I mean, I think I went from like 1,000 LinkedIn connections to like 4,000 like overnight. It was just like, you need to talk to this person, you need to talk to that person, you need to talk to this person. And that kind of level of interest, and it, from the founders, who wanted to participate and be a part of the organization, to all of the partners, and our investors, it was sort of like, okay, we got to move. Like, we got to start building, because, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing, right? We're co-founding and building companies. And so we immediately started interviewing founders. We developed a panel of exited founders and investors, so that would sort of validate, who we had in consideration to co-found with. Moved into that very quickly, and then at the time we had 3 companies we were ready to start building. We had no money, but we had a team of people who were working for free and very anxious to get it off the ground. So that's when we launched our WeFunder, raised a little bit of money, and that allowed us to operate and start building our first 2 companies. So, I mean, the idea, it was almost like the idea stage was like a blip in time for what we were building.
Gotcha. And then in terms of the structure, so you have the 3 co-founded companies, right? You have your advisory board, you have investors. What else makes up Fierce Foundry into what it is today? Like, outside of those constituents.
Yeah. So our operators are operating partners, right? So, that's, I think, a really key part when you talk about the advisors. So we have a board of directors and we have an advisory board. And each individual comes to the table with something very unique and specific, because not only are we're building, companies, we're building products, right? Tech products right now. We are educating our founders on how to be business people, how to run a business, right? So we have partners that kind of span lots of different areas, whether it's industry expertise or founder therapy. Which is a real thing. And I actually offered it to one of our founders today, because I think, it's that level of support that's needed to hit the milestones and be successful the way we want them to be. So our little sort of Fierce Foundry ecosystem is predominantly that, right?
Gotcha. And then in terms of those 3 startups that you've got helped get off the ground, what are their names and what do they do?
So it's now 2.
Okay.
We decided to move forward with 2 into the stage that we're in right now. The first is Dove, and it's an AI tool for dementia patients. And the second is Hey Ivy, which is an investment app for women. If you think Duolingo meets E-Trade.
Duolingo meets E-Trade. So can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, suffice it to say that women in general are not given the financial planning mindset the way men are early on, right? It's like you go work for a company, you start a 401k, and pretty much it's like, good, I'll use that to retire. Whereas, the male experience is very different. So if you look at all the apps that are built today that allow you to go and invest, it's so heavily male focused in terms of how men interact with technology. So if we can build an app that not only educates, like Duolingo, and gives you rewards, for the different levels of learning, but also gives you an opportunity to invest in, unique ways, to diversify how you're investing in your financial future, then I think we can have a larger impact on what the future looks like, for all the young women who are kind of just getting into the career stages of their lives. Katie, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a client, I'm a customer. I wanted to try it out, also so as part of the Foundry, I could give advice. I have an operations background, but I really like to get deep with what is this trying to do. I learned a ton that I didn't know, and I would say that I am somebody who has my finances under control, and, I'm the head of household and always have been. And I just learned a ton of how to make sure that I have enough money at retirement. And what I learned from Tess, the founder, is that it's not, most of our clients are older people who sort of missed the boat and have a lot of embarrassing stories of, like, one time I got, $50,000 and I put it in a checking account. That could have
Okay.
been like, $1 million by now.
Right.
So that
Sure.
kind of very helpful.
It is very helpful. But what's also interesting in terms of the through line, in terms of what Fierce Foundry is doing and what this app is doing, to help educate and help women plan for their financial future, is you're unlocking information that otherwise people wouldn't know. You're providing access to more information that people wouldn't know. In terms of like, is that, if you were to describe what Fierce Foundry is doing in like one sentence, like how would you describe it? Because I think what you're talking about, again, is information that I wouldn't otherwise not know. I think it's huge, in addition to, again, providing you with the tools and making your concept into reality.
Yeah. I'll just share this because I had this conversation with one of the founders of the Venture Studio Forum this week, where Fierce Foundry is a venture studio for female-led organizations. Okay, so that's what it is first and foremost. The second piece of it is we're focusing on health tech for women and the people in their lives. And we describe that very broadly. You heard me mention one of our products as a dementia product. Well, it's not just women who suffer from dementia. It's not just women who are the caregivers. It's mostly women. So there's different levels or layers of impact that we're having. And I think making the decision to focus on health tech for women and people in their lives allows us the opportunity to educate the broader population on the the failure of the healthcare system for women over the years, because people don't even realize that we live longer than men and we suffer 25% more during the duration of that life. So why don't we have better access, not access, but better healthcare for us? Why are we being diagnosed as small white men? It's time to change that. It's time to make people aware that, women weren't even included in clinical studies until 1993. And because of things like that, it's just, we're not a priority.
Yeah.
There's more of us. We live longer, we suffer more. Come on, let's get some education in general out there.
And we want to work with female founders because that's a good investment. The results are stronger, and more personal reasons. I think as a founder myself, I've been given a lot of opportunity in my life, and I feel like my next chapter is what Melissa said. The mission statement is like, can you open the door for people behind you?
Yeah. Can you send back the as I like to say, send back the ladder or the elevator, for people who are starting. Yeah.
And I'm really excited to be able to do that.
Right. And Katie, you're, a co-founder of Booster, right? And in terms of just like giving context, I think I know, but just context for the audience who's going to listen to this podcast, like how many other co-founders of very large venture backed startups do you know or have these types of conversations with? Because I would think this is somewhat rarefied air, right? In terms of your access and the visibility that you're getting.
Yeah, I think so. Was the question how many female co-founders are there and founders?
No. I'm talking about like in terms of like that people you interact with that are in a similar situation or similar position as you.
Yeah.
I would think you're in more rarefied air and you're trying to expand that access and
Yeah, last night I gave a talk or was at a panel discussion for a Super Momos event. Great organization, by the way. I love them. And I met someone who's involved in Fierce Foundry. So we're spreading. And I think I didn't realize that I'm like, I made it, because people were coming to me like, oh, how did you do it? And I was like, oh, I'm still in it. I'm still doing it. So I say things like, oh, I want to be able to open the door for other people. And that is why, when Melissa and I were doing Fierce Founders, I wanted to keep going, but it's actually happening in practice now. And I think it felt really good to have people validate, like, oh, we want to hear what you have to say. We want the benefit of your experience. And now being able to give that just feels so good. And people were asking me really specific questions, and I forgot about the desperation that it feels like to be a founder in those early stages where you're like, I have 3 months of runway.
Right.
What do I do for the next 3 months? Or I have 10 months, but my development costs 3 times as much as it's supposed to. These are like real things that people need to deal with. And I feel like either we what we can provide with Fierce Foundry is like either those answers in-house or the network to be able to provide those answers. And I think that's really great.
And go ahead.
But no, I was just going to add on to that because it is true. Like, the network around founders at VC-backed companies is huge for us. I mean, that's, and it continues to grow, right? Like I think one of the things that is important to note about women and in general is that there is this immediate sort of synergy when you realize now you've got someone who's been through what you've gone through or is going through it at the same time that is a woman, right? And that we're very different than male founders in how we think about and run our businesses. And so being able to connect and have that synergy and learn. And I'm telling you, Katie, because I got a text message right after you spoke that impact
Really?
is immediate. It's the more that we can kind of facilitate those interactions, even just someone listening to a woman on a stage saying, I'm the co-founder at a VC-backed tech company, that in itself drives that impact. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be a part of this like growing and very connected community.
Right. And then in terms of, just building upon that, right? You mentioned network, Melissa, and to get into a network, you need to know who to talk to. So if I'm an aspiring founder, whether I'm Katie, I'm Melissa, again, this is my first foray into entrepreneurship and I need help. Like, how do I find Fierce Foundry? Like, where do I go? Like, how do I get access? Maybe not just Fierce Foundry, but just getting access to these incredible resources.
So I'm going to say something first. I'm going to say you have to reach out to one person who might be able to connect you to another person. And more than likely that person's going to connect you to another person as well. It's for me, like being an introvert, it was really hard to understand the power in that. So you're on LinkedIn, you really want to, get connected to this one particular person. It would be awesome if you could meet with them. You do a connect, it doesn't happen. Find alternate ways, just ask other people to connect you. I had a call, someone connected me to someone else who connected me to someone else that I talked to this week. I almost canceled the call because I was like, we were going to talk about like studio models and stuff and kind of think we're in a good place. And I don't think it's going to be a good use of my time. And then I remembered that idea exactly. Like I could talk to this person and there could be something within the network that I wouldn't even be thinking of. And guess what? Not only was this man a huge ally for us at Fierce Foundry because he believes so much in what we're doing. And by the way, for the men who are listening out there, we talk a lot about women and what we need and what we're doing, but people like Eric, people like this gentleman I met this week, like we desperately need you to be part of this journey as well. And that led to 3 more connections that I have been wanting to get that I did not know where to go. So long story to say, just start reaching out. The network is what you make it. And it starts with that first conversation.
Right. And I imagine, Katie, like when you were raising money for Booster, like again, we'll go back to Booster, for example, like in terms of the investors, like I imagine there were personal relationships that played a huge part in getting those meetings.
Yes. Not
like exasperated, yes.
No.
You just took her back in time.
No.
She's like,
no, not again.
I had to drudge it. I literally yesterday in preparing for this talk had to draw a timeline because we've been at it for 10 years. And like I have just blocked all of that early. I was like, when did we get seed funding? When did we get that? No, our first investor was a VC fund in the industry, and they helped us quite a bit. So that was one of my secret sauce was like, if you can get some funding for people who already know your area. Our network was important in getting clients. So actual revenue is what came from our network, and it still matters. Like I just got off the phone. We're going to pitch to this very large client we've been trying to get for 4 years and just found out that one of my favorite people at one of our clients' boss moved over there. So I was like, can you get me an intro? So not from a money perspective, from a client perspective, network is everything because, it's rough out there. And the more you can just be around cool people who like you and know you and trust you, I think people cling to that when everything else is uncertain.
No, that's a very good point, and it's funny. I was watching a clip on Instagram. Robert Hershkovich from Shark Tank was asked, is it more important to what was the is it who you know versus what you know, right? And he goes, he said, and out of 1,000 people, he was the first one to say, who you know is bullshit. And I'm like, I got really upset. I was like really incensed. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm doing all this, like what you're saying, like building relationships, this, this and that, and going to coffee meetups and reaching out to people on LinkedIn, cold and email. But he also made a very good point. It's what you know, because even if you didn't know anyone, you become the expert and you become the person that people want to seek out, right? So I'm like, interesting. So maybe that's an aspiration for Fierce Foundry. Like, yes, your network is very important, but like, what is that again? That signature.
I think
in terms
that's
of
mirrored in our own journey. So like our nonprofit Fierce Founders was a network. That's like who you know, and Fierce Foundry, the startup studio, is about like, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to build? And I think so. Maybe I would echo that.
Yeah, like what are you going to build? Because again, those two startups that you're working with right now, and also in terms of like the startups that you work with, can you walk us through like that application process? Like, are you working on a cohort basis, or is it again 2 and then 2 plus? So now you're working with 4. Just love to
Yeah,
understand
I can explain it. So we're in our proof of concept stage right now. Our goal is to raise a fund so that we can build 5 to 7 companies over the next 2 years. Once we do that, we'll go out for another fund that will allow us to actively build 3 to 5 companies a year. We don't call them cohorts. We've been referring to it as sort of the class of, because they can come in and there's a level of flexibility because of how women work. That's a little bit different than you might see like at an accelerator. It's like, all right, day 1 cohort, get in, everything's very rigid and structured, which is important, but our structure is more about the milestone that needs to be hit and what it's going to take to get there, and working with each founder independently on how they work. That's kind of, that's where we are today in this sort of proof of concept. I would say, if we effectively raise the money that we need right now, what we plan to do is use our nonprofit Fierce Founders as our sort of core development for pipeline in founders. So our founder validation process is going to shift to the nonprofit. So anybody who's listening, if you have a donor advised fund, or if you'd like to contribute, just let me know, reach out to me. But that's going to allow us to actually provide all of the resources that we have to a much larger group of founders over a 6-month period of time. And that will, so basically it's like idea to MVP over 6 months. And we will, validate the idea as much as we can early on. We'll do the market research. We'll build out the positioning and the product marketing. We will move into prototyping and then get to that MVP stage. That'll allow us to get to know the founders, get to know the products, get to know kind of a little bit more in depth of what we're co-founding. And from there, we'll sort of select who we want to work with. But at the same time, what's great about that is that, if we can extend this out to as many founders as possible, we can be basically giving some people a head start through that sort of early stage.
That early validation for that 6 months. So you're selecting, you said 5 to 7 years where you want to get to. Okay.
So 5 to 7 in our first 2 years will be our proof of concept. That's our goal.
Okay.
So that's what we believe we can build with the money that we're raising.
Got it. And
then from there, if we can get 5 a year, that's great. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. But in terms of that early validation, through the nonprofit, okay, 5 to 7 over 2 years for the proof of concept. So let's say, I don't know, double the amount of founders want to be part of that, again, from 0 to MVP stage. For the founders where you're saying, the founders, you get to know them, they're great people. The idea or what they're building may not be the right fit for Fierce Foundry. What's then the recommendation once they hit that 6-month wall? Like, hey, Melissa and Katie are recommending what? to help them continue their dream.
That's where the network comes in, right? So, the Fierce Founders community, the nonprofit itself will always be there. So there's always that resource, but it's, making sure that we can get them set up with the best board possible and have the right advisors that can kind of help them continue on that journey. I don't know, Katie, if you want to add to that.
No, I mean, we haven't done it yet, so I don't know, but that on paper is what it should look like. And, we'll come back to this program in a year or so and compare notes, and if that's the way that it worked out or not.
Gotcha. And then looking back, again, you're in, you're working with these two startups. If you look back to day one of when you started, right, is there anything that you would have changed, or do you believe, in your gut, like everything that you've done so far are the right moves and the right decisions?
What do you want to say?
Melissa's head might melt trying to answer this question, but for me, it's just time and focus. If I could go back, I would be more deliberate about carving time. I wish I could do this like with half of my time. Because I do think it's so interesting and compelling. It gives me a ton of energy. It reminds me of why I'm doing this. It makes me feel like I have a larger purpose than selling some software, which I love. I also love, But, while also I have kids and a job and Fierce Foundry, I just wish I had been more deliberate about my time. I feel like we could have gone faster.
Yeah, I think it's hard, when you're building something on the side because you still need to pay the bills, like that time component. I fully feel that, but I will, kind of go back and say we made a decision to keep building even though we didn't have any money in the bank.
Right.
And so I think we made some really good decisions that, allowed us to continue on the path and on the journey. And Eric, I don't know if this was something that you gleaned when you were at Buddy Media like I did, but, trusting your gut was something I never really understood in real detail. And I actually met with Cass Lazaro from Buddy Media a couple weeks ago and said it again. She said, you got to trust your gut. And I said, I actually successfully trusted my gut and made a decision not too long ago. We had someone on the team that just wasn't the right fit, and we needed to make that decision quickly. And I felt it. I don't know about my stomach, but I felt it kind of in my skin.
Right.
And so I would say there have been, that trusting your gut moments have been part of this journey in a lot of really interesting ways.
I know this isn't the question, but Melissa, while you're talking, I said at the beginning you should talk first because it's your baby, but I think your conviction that this is the right thing to do and this is the right path has been why we've had such great response from everyone we talk to. I mean, I think everybody in their heart is like me. They want to give back. They want to do something. They want to be surrounded by women. That's true for everybody, Yeah. But the way that you feel about this, Melissa, and where you are to be able to trust your gut, I think has been a huge difference maker. And I'm really glad that I get to be part of it.
Appreciate you saying that. That actually warms my heart to hear because I am very determined.
Yeah.
I am very determined. I believe in this more than anything I've ever done in my career. I feel very strongly. And so that means a lot to hear that, Katie.
Love it. I love it. I love the co-founder love and appreciation. That's great.
Yes, that's why I wanted to be part of something where I could just at work be like, I love you.
I love you too.
With no awkwardness.
Yeah. Nope.
No, that's excellent.
No.
And then, and this is great that you're getting that validation. In terms of the feedback, Cass, gave you the feedback on, trusting your gut. What other sort of feedback really stands out? That, again, sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, it's lonely, right? Because you with the boss, you sometimes get the great job, Melissa, great job, Katie. But when you're working for yourself, you don't really get that. But sometimes you get some people unsolicitedly saying, this is great. I love what you're working on. I love what you're doing. What stands out in your mind?
I have to just say, I meet with so many new people and share this idea every week. And I end each day on that exact sentiment where it's like, wow, this makes total sense. And again, more of that validation, this is this is such a great model. This is such a great model. And the sort of like, okay, we're validated. People who, I spend 15 minutes with to explain it, and they're just like, they're, sort of like praising the idea itself is just like, it's something I hear on a regular basis. Now, there are people who come in and sort of, want to give advice in different ways. And we've navigated through some of that. I think where that comes from and why that makes sense now is that whenever we would talk to someone who's much more on the VC side of things, explaining how the studio model works, it's like, no, you can't, you have to do it this way. You need to go, this is how you need to structure, legally, this is how you need to structure your funds. Katie, how many times did we go back and forth, and we've come back to the original way that we wanted to do this? The studios are like the wild, wild west right now. So, you're getting lots of different advice and guidance from people. But, now that we've sort of locked in, we went back to sort of the original idea that we had for the sort of financial model of what we're building. I get that validation. I get that, yes, this works. This is, I get it regularly now. So it feels really good, by the way.
No, that's excellent.
I don't know, Katie, what do you have for that question?
I mean, when you said it, Eric, I was like, every time someone's told me that our business is good, it's usually when a VC is about to say no, they don't want to give us money. Like, I know when I'm in any conversation, it's like, hey, you're running a great business, that the meeting is over and I'm not getting any money. So that's
Stop doing so good.
Yeah.
Stop.
No, we're doing fine. They just don't want to take part. And I've also, seen so many times that there's just some firms, they just have their own model and maybe we don't fit in it. But the whole DNA of Fierce Foundry is like, yeah, we're kind of going into uncharted space here. There's just not, it is the Wild West. And that was probably, that makes it great. Tons of opportunity and gives us the conviction that like, it doesn't have to be a cookie cutter.
Right. It doesn't have to be cookie cutter, but when it comes to the pitch deck and comes to talking to VCs, like based on this is a great business, but we're not going to invest. Do you think it's because they don't understand, or because, to Melissa's earlier point, they have their own ideas?
No, it's because of how the money flows. It's literally just the standard approach that a VC would anticipate when investing in something. And so what we had to do is, like I said, go back to our original model. And we're not actually looking to capture VC money right now. When we go out for our Series A, yes, that will change. We're focused on angels and family offices. And of course, our donor advised funds donating into Fierce Foundry. So we've actually split how we're thinking about this in a way that would allow us to sort of diversify, right? And it's not how VCs think financially. And so we had to like just say, okay, we're going to step away. Am I still having conversations with VCs? Absolutely. Are we still, making sure that we're building that network? Absolutely. Because there's value on every level, and it can be in a connection like we talked about earlier for future relationships when it comes to fundraising, in a couple of years from now. And it also, the biggest thing that I love is meeting an investor that has a thesis that matches a founder that we've met or talked to that we can then connect. So those conversations are still really, really important, still happening, but we know that we're not going to be getting any money from them. And I should also mention that, Katie, I don't know if you know this, but there are actual VCs who invest in studio models. It's just the financials are different than what the way we've set up, and they typically invest in later stage studios. So.
Right. Yeah, it might be in our future, but not now.
Yep.
Not now. But if you're a donor advised fund, donor advised.
Yeah. So do you know what those are?
If you can explain it. No, I'd love it. Yeah, please.
So there are banks that you can set up a donor advised fund. So basically you put a certain amount of your money into donations that are managed by the fund. So Fidelity Charitable is one of these segments of the bank that you basically are giving your money and they invest it in lots of different nonprofits. And so what the bank will do is search through the database of 501c3s and see if there's something that makes sense, make that recommendation, and then your funds can easily move into donating for, some mission-based organization. So we're going to start marketing that piece of it. And I'm actually really excited because at first I thought, oh, this is going to be another challenge to figure out. But I get so excited when it's like this whole new space that I get to learn all about and participate in. So,
and then, so you have to find so at Fidelity, you have to find the person who's in charge of that fund.
Well, we can also find a way to get our mission in front of high net worth individuals who are, and it's not always just high net worth individuals. If we want bigger checks, obviously that would be making more sense. But we can get in front of individuals that have these funds set up, and they can go and request that we be included in theirs. So there's a lot of different ways that we'll market to these individuals, I think.
Excellent. Almost on the hour. So in terms of how folks who are going to listen to this conversation, where should they go to find out more about Fierce Foundry?
I think you can start by going to our website, fiercefoundry.com. Obviously, we're very active on LinkedIn. If you search for Fierce Foundry there. You can also email me directly, melissa@thefiercefoundry.com. Welcome all the emails. If you're interested in any level, like we said, we've got our founders, we've got our investors, we've got our operators. And if you represent any of those, feel free to reach out.
Gotcha. Okay. And then in terms of events, because I was at a great event that you and Katie hosted. Can you tell us about those events? So it was at a Luminary space. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, we do a monthly co-working day for founders at Luminary. We have a great relationship. Luminary is a beautiful space. If you haven't been there, go get a free pass and a tour, or join us. Usually it's the first Wednesday of every month. But if you go to our Luma page, if you go to Luma, the event page, and you search for Fierce Foundry, you'll find us immediately. You can sign up for a co-working day there. That's, something that we do with founders all the time. And we try to bring in people to come in and educate and do some stuff throughout the day. And then we always end each night with our Founders and Funders networking event, which is what you joined us at, Eric. This month we did not have one, but next month is really exciting because on October 23rd, is it October 23rd?
I don't know.
October 23rd, I'm pretty sure of it. We will be culminating our investment readiness bootcamp. We have 10 founders who are going through a 5 or 6 week program, and they're going to be pitching their companies at our October 23rd event at Luminary. So we would love for anybody to join us at one of those events.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then in terms of the bootcamp, so what does the bootcamp entail?
So this boot camp in particular is investment readiness. It starts next week and it's 5 weeks. The way that our boot camps are organized are to have a training, homework, and then one-on-one time with the trainer. And so each week is a different focus. The first week will be me talking about brand positioning and building the sort of the functional parts of a pitch, which are the script and the deck. And then I can't remember what comes after. I think it's financial models. I know, Katie, you're coming in to do some coaching, right? We have a bunch of different people coming in to do one-on-one coaching throughout the whole process. So there's financial modeling, there's legal guidance. So we have Perkins Coie, who's joining us.
Very impressive.
Yeah, they're a wonderful partner of ours as well. And they're joining to come into, it's like all the things you need to get set up, and like they'll again train, but then work one-on-one with the founders to make sure they have what they need to get started. And then, I think we'll have some pitch practices. That's what we have some of our advisors coming in to participate in the pitch practices. And then of course, the prep work. So building your outreach targets and the communications associated with doing that initial outreach. So I'm doing a terrible job selling it, but Caroline,
I'm still sold.
Caroline on our team has done a wonderful job with Danica and getting it all pulled together. So it's going to be great.
Excellent. So I love to end this conversation with, if you're a founder and you're looking to identify what you don't know about starting your business, especially from those crucial parts of 0 to 1, reach out to Melissa and to Katie, because again, you're a wealth of information, especially these bootcamp that you just described. Again, I wouldn't know where to start, but you're serving on a silver platter to these founders. who otherwise would not know. They would have, yes, maybe they would have reached out to someone, or maybe would have gone on Google or LinkedIn. But again, you packaged it within 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
It's going to be excellent. Well, Melissa and Katie, I'm going to include all the links, to where to find Fierce Foundry on their website, their Luma page, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's going to be a information bonanza.
Great.
Just get ready for the deluge of inquiries. Yes. Because again, I'm just feeding off of Melissa's energy and her passion.
I know, right?
Anyone that's interested in Fierce Foundry, but also in starting a business and has an idea and wants it to come to fruition. Again, this should be the first stop. Fierce Foundry should be the first stop. So again, I'm very, very, very grateful and appreciative of all the insights and experience that you both have shared with us on the Worthy for 30 platform. For those investors, specifically those family offices and those donor advised funds, if you're out there, reach out to Melissa and to Katie. Let's make this happen. Let's make magic happen. I love connecting people, especially guests of the show who are also supporters. So thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.